we're going to take a look at some of the organizational tools available for arranging UV clusters inside the 0 to 1 space, these being found inside the Arrange Elements rollout. Before we take a look at using these, however, it is important to note that they can be applied to either all of the UV clusters at once or to a very specific selection. If we want to work on all of the elements at once, it isn't necessary to select them all, as simply having no selection also ensures that this will happen. As you can see on the mesh, the larger portions have a much lower texture resolution than some of the smaller areas, meaning the texture will appear blurry or of a lower quality in these large areas as compared to the small. This will obviously detract from our visualization, and so let's fix it by using what we have in the Arrange Elements rollout. Let's make sure that we have the UV editor open and we are in Polygon Subobject mode. Then, that the element toggle is switched on, and we also want to make sure that we have clicked in some empty space to ensure that we have nothing at all selected. Coming to our controls, the first button we see is the Pack Custom option, which if I click on, reorders all of the clusters to fit inside the 0 to 1 space. If we then press Ctrl+Z and drag a marquee selection over just a few clusters and then press it again, notice that only the selected UVs are packed now. Let's press Ctrl+Z to undo again. If we next press and hold the button, we now gain access to a second option that when pressed opens up the properties or options that the Pack Custom button uses. The first of which is a drop-down that, in my personal opinion, we want to leave set to non-convex, as this lets the packing system use gaps in non-convex clusters. To show what I mean, let's choose the linear packing option, press OK, and now we see that a lot of our texture resolution is in fact being wasted. If I undo and reopen the options dialog, set the drop-down to non-convex, and again press OK, we now see the space used much more efficiently. Let's press Ctrl+Z again. Now, the Normalize option will pack the UVs inside the 0 to 1 space, but if we turn it off and press OK, you can see that whilst we are still getting a nice square pack of our UVs, they are no longer fitted into the 0 to 1 space automatically. We can also choose to rotate and rescale clusters, which are of course fairly self-explanatory terms. Although we may run into situations where we might want to turn these off. For instance, it may be that we have scaled our clusters to get the texture resolution that we want, or we may have manually crafted our light map UVs so that more resolution is given to areas of the mesh that have more complex lighting hitting it. Turning these off will mean that we can still take advantage of the packing algorithms without losing any of the work already done on either orientation or scaling. In the case of our wood, just to make texturing easier, we may want to turn off the Rotate Clusters option, as we can then make sure all of the clusters that are going to have the wood material applied to them are vertical or horizontal. Now this would mean that a texture artist could make a single wood grain texture and then have it run in the correct direction on all areas of wood on the mesh. Finally, the Fill Holes option will place smaller clusters inside gaps on the larger clusters in order to take full advantage of the mapping space available. Padding sets the space that is left between each cluster, which we can adjust to stop texture bleed between UV seams. If we turn all of these options on them and click OK, you can see that we get a pretty good pack of our UV clusters. Knowing how to quickly pack our UV clusters then, whilst at the same time maintaining control over texture resolution, is a must when it comes to creating high-quality visualizations inside the Unreal Engine.